I think where I want to start today's conversation, because I know the meaning we tie to things is so important. And I know a lot of times our first introduction to something, or how it kind of makes its way into our world, kind of dictates and shapes the future for us. And where I want to go, because I want to obviously take today's conversation around the alcoholic's brain, is I'm curious with you. I know the story, but the audience obviously doesn't. When did alcohol kind of make its first appearance into your life? And what does that first exposure to a substance such as alcohol have on the influence of our brain? And then obviously, where does that take us in the future? So yeah, kind of where did all this kind of start for you at a very, very young age?
So before I explain exactly when it started, you have to understand the alcoholic brain. It's slightly different to the addictive brain in the sense that it's a predisposition. Addiction is not a predisposition. Alcoholism is. So that means you can trace your family back through alcoholism through generations. If you can't trace it back, you may be a heavy drinker or an abuser of alcohol. There is a difference. So I want to get that out the way first of all. So I'm born this way with a predisposition biochemically changed in the brain. So I have loads of self-sabotaging neural pathways, which is basically our thought patterns. So I remember the time it was in England, Liverpool, actually, where the Beatles were from. We were playing a club over there, and there was so many people there. I was shocked when the curtain opened. I kind of froze. I was 9 years old, out with a musical family. My uncle and my auntie were singing and playing, and I come off in the middle after the first set, going on for the second, and I'm so nervous, and I'm kind of starstruck with everything, all the lights and the people. So my uncle said, "Here's this drink," and he gave me what I know now to be half a beer. But I drank it. I didn't like the taste of it, but when I took it, the first few swallows, it was like my whole life just changed. Now, I ask other people now when they're that age, 10, 11, 12, your first drink, what was it like? They go, "Oh my God, it was horrible. I spat it out. I didn't want anything to do with it." I'm like, "Oh, well, that was different to me, because when I first drank at the age of 9, I went back on stage the second half and I was freaking amazing. I don't know whether I was, but I felt amazing. It's like Johnny B. Good all over again. I was all over the stage. It was, just amazing." So that was the first drink of the alcoholic, which obviously destined, no matter who you are, what you are, rich, black, white, poor, makes no difference, finally catches up on you. And unless you get treatment, it'll kill you. So that's where it all started for me.
Yes, I think my question here is, obviously you're the expert. You've studied the brain, you spent your lifetime doing this, and obviously have, transformed a lot of people's lives. And I know you've looked at the research. Is what you're saying. So let's say that same brain, same time period in your life, had you taken, that sip of alcohol, and maybe it wasn't in that exact scenario where it kind of gave you that sense of like relieving of the stress, and kind of you had that kind of feel good feeling. If it had been a different incident, maybe where actually you kind of drank too much and got sick, would that not have changed like the future? Like, would it not have tied more of a negative meaning to the alcohol? Because I think what I heard you say is like the brain is completely different, so it doesn't matter what that first exposure really is. Would that have been the case?
Correct. I mean, I drank a few times after. It made me sick. It was horrible, but I still kept going back. And that's where it differs again from the normal brain. So whenever, whatever, quantities don't make any difference. Upbringing makes a slight difference, but not much. As soon as you take the first drink, if you alcoholism in your family, your behavior changes and your mindset changes from day one. And you'll see that alcohol will have an amazing effect for the first few years, maybe for 10, 20, 30, 40 years even. But sooner or later, the self-sabotaging will get worse and worse and worse. And we don't actually learn from our mistakes with the alcoholic brain. What happens is the self-sabotaging neural pathways are formed. So in other words, if this is my self-sabotaging neural pathway and this is my healthy neural pathway, this one is the leading neural pathway every single time. So the idea is try and get to that with recovery, but we're always in that. Now, what happens with this is the neural pathway there are billions in the brain, guys, follow me. The neural pathway there to self-sabotage is the strongest bunch of neural pathways. And what happens is when I stop drinking and try and stop drinking, for a period of time, what happens usually with a normal neural pathway is it diminishes out the way. So you have to really try and bring it back to that self-sabotage. Now, with alcohol, neural pathways, when we drink again, it starts here. So then we're increasing the self-sabotage rather than starting from zero, where we might get a week, a month, even a year where we can drink successfully. With alcoholics, you're back to that point right there. You don't get this grace period. So there, the self-sabotaging will always be worse. It will never be better.
Got it. Yeah. So a lot of the work that I do with men in the way that I, break it down is, with porn addiction, like we go through an unwiring and rewiring process. The unwiring is eliminating off the consumption, and over a period of time, those neural pathways that are wired to need the pornography will begin to get weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And then the rewiring process is then where you kind of play offense. It's like, okay, now what kind of tools and strategies can we look to build those better connections? But what I heard you say is like, with the alcohol, there's no real unwiring. It's kind of just like, you could take a year, 2 years, 5 years off. The minute you have that first drink, again, it's like you're already back at kind of the top level response mechanism.
That's explained beautifully, yeah.
Got it.
And with addiction, for those guys watching, it's like this. So when we go into therapy or we go into treatment or we start acting the right way, repetition strengthens and confirms. Hanging around with the right crowd, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Then this becomes a self-care, like you say. But this is always here. And what happens is, bang, you start from there. So it's more destroying than an addiction as a whole. Though they present themselves the same way when you're an addict, you've kind of used, you kind of like it, you get accustomed to it. It becomes like a habit, and then it becomes an addiction. Both as hard to break. Don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not saying drug addiction is easy. I'm saying alcoholics are born, drug addicts are made.
Yeah, this is fascinating. This has been incredibly insightful for me over the weeks and getting prepared for today, because, and I'm curious your take on this. I don't, or I didn't, at least until today, really subscribe to addiction is a disease. Like I never really believed that, because a disease is something that I don't feel you have power over changing. But from what I'm hearing you saying, there is a disease component. So how do you kind of phrase that? Like, do you look at alcoholism as a disease, or is it deeper, or is there a better word for it?
Definitely, it's a disease. I mean, in 1995, the World Health Organization classed it as a disease, and the reason why they did is we have no control over it. So you have control to a certain degree. Again, guys, bear with me. This is all my evidence-based research over 30 years. So it's a fine line between the addict and the alcoholic. But what happens basically is it remaps our brain. Now, everybody asks me, Frank, what's the gateway drug? And the answer is always the same. It's trauma. So predisposition, born this way, chemically imbalanced, remap brain from birth, and we're off to the races right there and then. But let me explain what trauma is, because most people say, well, what's the trauma in your childhood? And they go, well, I've not been in any car accidents or plane accidents. And they say, no, that's what's the trauma? And they go, I don't know. So I always say this to them, and this is researched, evidence-based, again, by Robb Kelly Recovery Group, is me and my brother, for instance, are sat on the kitchen table, and my mum walks in, and we're not supposed to be on the kitchen table, and my mum says to my brother, Paul, will you get down off that table? You stupid idiot. Get down off that table. So he gets down because that's what he hears mum say. She says the same thing in the same tone at the exact time to me, but what I hear with my distorted neural pathways with alcoholic brain, get down off that chair. You stupid idiot. Get down, is what I hear. And that's where people go, what? And I go, yes. And we're still trying to, this is new research, as in 20, 30 years old. It's, in 10 years' time, all this research will be common knowledge and everybody will do it. But we're breaking the boundaries all the time, going into neuroscience and behavior, because at the end of the day, alcoholism has got 1% to do with alcoholics. Alcohol has got hardly nothing to do with it. It's about my brain. It's about my central nervous system. It's about my behavior. And once we start to know that, we can move forward and say, hey, my dad said it all the time, Frank, why can't you just stop drinking because of your children? If I could have just stopped drinking because of my children, I would have done. I end up losing them in the end because alcoholism. So no, alcoholics do not have a choice whether they drink or not. It's a self-sabotaging, chemically based disease. I will always, after a period of time, pull everything down on my head. job, car, house, wife. I'm looking good for the period of time at the beginning. I was always self-sabotage.
Yeah, this is so good. So what are the warning signs? Because you talked about it at the beginning. You kind of look at family lineage. Like maybe your parents, or maybe sometimes it skips a generation. So we have that where we can just if we have some self awareness, like look at our family and see if it's been a trend. But not a lot of people are actually gonna do that, and also probably not at a young age are you equipped to even be able to process that. So what are other warning signs? It's not like we obviously don't have a lot of young kids listening to this, but maybe with their children, or maybe if they're already in it, like what are some signs that people could look for if they to know that if they do have an alcoholic's brain?
Well, what you must know is the parents, okay? The parents know. The child doesn't. I didn't know at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 20. I didn't know. Nobody told me. Nobody had a conversation with me. So if you're mom and dad to a teen, you know if there's alcoholism in your family, if you're a woman, or your husband's family, and vice versa. You know there's been alcoholism and maybe addiction in the family. That's the warning sign. Dialogue is all I say to dialogue. Tell your 8, 9, 10, 11 year old kids about alcoholism and about how there's devastation in the family from the past. And be careful. Now, the ages 9, 10, 11, they're not going to think much of it. But everything that's said and done to us, everything we see and hear is filed away in the subconscious brain. That's where the disease lives, in the subconscious brain. So it's going to be there. And then when it happens, they take the first drink and they feel different. That's the warning sign to the child and you to monitor that first drink and see if it's skipped a generation or it's caught your kid. And if your kid's 12 or 13, by the time it takes the first drink, watch the behavior, watch the isolation, watch the not coming down to dinner, like you used to do. Watch the time up, off school, whatever it may be, there'll be a change of behavior. There always is. I can spot an alcoholic from a mile away. You walk into the door, I can tell by looking at him, I can tell how he acts, how he sits down without even speaking to him. So there are lots of signs there for parents to look out. But start that dialogue early, guys.
Is there anything that you can articulate? Obviously, I know that this is due to your work of being working with thousands of addicts over the last 30 years, that you can do that. But is there anything that you could share with us that as far as like how to identify in it? How do they approach the room? How do they scan? How do they interact with other people? How do they sit? Are these signs that somebody like myself that maybe hasn't spent a lot of one-on-one time, like? You see what I'm saying? Like, are there actual, signs that we could see in their behavior?
The drinking at parties and heavy drinking is one. The isolation is two. When you see somebody shying away from the spotlight, so if there's a bunch of chairs and they sit at the back, that's also another sign. Don't like to talk in public. Don't like to draw attention to themselves. And this is the part when they know that they need alcohol to carry on through their life. So them signs are always there, especially the unkempt look and the isolation. But yeah, alcoholics who are struggling tend to cow down, tend to stay small, don't mix in large groups. The isolation is number one. We love to do that. So that's the case. That's the kind of stuff that the normal person, the layman person, can look at. And if you're mom and dad, then obviously you've got a better look from the isolation in the bedroom and the people I hang around with. Again, if you hang around with 9 depressed people, you will become the 10th. So that's the other thing as well. Watch the friends that hang around. If they're known for drinking and drugging at an early age, then your kid may be in danger, because what happens to the alcoholic brain that doesn't happen to the normal brain is where it shows up the same at a period of time, that everyone's heavy drinking, everyone's hungover, everyone's just getting in this great. But 9 out of 10 people with that will come out of that and go to college. The alcoholic can't come out of it. He is doomed for failure.
Yeah, wow. This is so good. So I want to get back to your story a little bit, because we had this first introduction, 9, like it felt amazing. You kind of you got over that fear. You're rocking with the family band on stage, and now here we are. Fast forward a long ways away, and you're 30 years into your work and your research, and what I love about it is everything you're sharing. It's not anecdotal, like you said. Like, this is evidence-based research. But I know that there's a big gap there, and it wasn't a smooth ride. So let's get back to kind of like pick the story back up where you want. But I want to kind of obviously go through the journey, graduating, kind of getting in the corporate world, then hitting the rock bottom on the streets, all that stuff. So let's use that, and then we'll obviously interject and pull more out. But yeah, so where, like what was the next kind of phase in life for you?
The next kind of phase with me was the confidence phase with the alcoholics. I was a musician, obviously, age of 9, playing bass. I can play any instrument, but I was on bass. And I looked around. I was always a smart kid. And I looked around and I saw a studio that was advertising in Stockport outside Manchester. And it was a studio called Strawberry Studios where they recorded commercials and stuff for radio and TV. It was owned by 10cc, actually. So I went there all cocky and everything, and I applied for a session bass player, and I got the job. And I realized that these guys were paying me extortionate amounts of money just to sit in a studio and play the guitar, the thing I did every day. I was around my neck 24 hours a day when I was growing up as a kid. So I knew that was cool, and I could drink and take it easy, even though it wasn't heavy drinking, have a few beers. But then what happened was, when I was about 14, 15, I think. When I was around 16, I saw an ad in the Melody Maker, which is a British music magazine, and it was advertising for a bass playing session musician at Abbey Road in London. That's the guy where the Beatles recorded. That's the big Abbey Road is the mecca of the music industry. Well, I'm cocky and I can play the bass like nobody else, as far as I'm concerned. You ask me any time during my life, bass and doing what I do now, best in the world. Period. Don't even start the argument. Best in the world. End of story. I have the addicted brain, remember? So I went for the job, and I had a beer outside for her. I went in, passed the first audition. The letter came a few days later, opened it up. I had 7 auditions for that position. So I had like an extra beer every time I went in. So I had 7 beers before I went in. I could hardly see or walk. And then I sat down, I played my deal, went home, and 4 or 5 days later, I got the letter to say that I'd got the position. Now, what does that tell me? It tells me that every time I drink alcohol, I'm successful. So I continued drinking. I did sessions with Elton John, David Bowie, Queen, all them great guys. I had early morning conversations with Freddie loads of times. It was amazing, beautiful man, and introduced me to, not him, the actual industry introduced me to cocaine. So I was cocaine and alcohol. I was driving Porsche 911s when I was like 18, put myself through college. Now, I joined the Freemasons early in England, very prestigious and very secret. But a friend of a friend knew I could play the organ. They got me in a year before I should. I think 17 is the thing. I got in early, and the money I got from Abbey Road paid me because they referred me to Oxford University. I should have never gone to Oxford. And it always felt like, I don't know, like an imposter, always. But I went through college drinking. It was amazing. I found people that could drink like me. It's phenomenal. But after a period of time, when it comes to tests and exams, they dropped off to go and study, and I'd stay in till 2 or 3, go home, bang some cocaine, and back into the school next day to try and take the exam. So that was the next stage, and the Abbey Road stage. I paid for it. Amazing life. Absolutely amazing life. But still successful, Frank. Still doing my deal. Bought the big house, met a girl, got married. She saw my alcoholism, expanding to unnormal behaviors and actions. So we decided to have one child, and that would calm me down, and the father, and I'll behave. And I remember going to the hospital. She had the baby. I held the baby in my arms, and I said to my wife, I swear I'll never drink alcohol again. This is my baby. I love this baby. 4 hours later, I was drunk because I had this disease. So during a little bit of violence in the house, we decided to have another child. So when I went down to the hospital the second time, I took 2 Bibles with me. And when the baby was born, I held her, I handed it back to my wife. I got the Bibles out. I stuck 2 hands on 2 Bibles, and I swore to God, and I swore to my child and my wife that I never drink alcohol again. And if you would have put me in a lie detector right there and then, Frank, I would have passed it. We've done studies on that as well. I would have passed the test as being truthful. 6 hours later, I was drunk again. I didn't still have a problem, though. It was just I was celebrating. I was earning a lot of money. But, people used to walk past our house and go, wow, look at that Porsche, look at that Bentley. Oh, my God, these guys have got it made. It was mayhem behind them curtains and blinds, Frank. Beating my wife, stabbing her 3 times one night because she wouldn't let me finish drinking my bottle. She followed me downstairs and snatched it off the side at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I stabbed her 3 times, and I took the bottle off her and I finished the drink. This is the behavior. Still didn't think I was an alcoholic, Frank. And then I stabbed her. I went to Spain. I fled to Spain to stay away because they were going to arrest me for attempted murder. because she lived, but I wouldn't come back. About a month later, the attorneys sorted it out, and I came back. And when I came back, Frank, she had my 2 kids there and the suitcases, and she said, "I love you till the day I die, Rob, but I'm not staying because you're going to kill the kids." Because I'd fell down on them. I'd left them in cinemas while I went for a drink. Just did some horrible stuff. So she went, and I got into my attorney, still cocky, still not taking any shit from anybody. And I said to my attorney, "Go and get my kids, and I'll give you a check for, I don't know how long, £10,000 maybe, I don't know." So the next day they brought them back, Frank, our 2 kids. He'd been to court and got some sort of injunction. I remember taking him in the room, Frank, and this is why it's a disease. I remember sitting in front of the TV with all the stuff that's just happened, all the crap and craziness of just happening, the beating, the stabbing, all that stuff that I did but didn't remember. I sat my 2 kids in front of the TV. I walked into the kitchen, and the thought pattern hit my head. Wouldn't it be great to have 1 beer to celebrate my kids coming back? It's the last thing I remember. And 2 days, 3 days later, I don't know how long, the police smashed the door down because Daddy's been on an alcoholic rampage. There's bottles all over the place. The kids have not been fed for 2 days or changed diapers. I'm unconscious on the floor. They slapped me to wake me up, and they handed me papers that said unfit father, and they took my 2 kids off me, Frank. And I remember walking through the door, and there was the authorities, there was the police, there was the wife, there was a mother, there was child protection services, and they walked down the path, and my daughter was holding on to Mummy's hand as she walked past, and she said these 3 things to me. She said, "Daddy, Daddy, please don't go." And they walked down the path further, and she turned around again and said, "Daddy, Daddy, please get better." And as they reached the gate and opened this big gate, she turned around one more final time, and she says, "Daddy, Daddy, please stop drinking." And I couldn't do it, Frank. I went back to the kitchen. I opened another beer. 6 or 7 months later, the wife had gone, the kids had gone, the house had gone, the license had been taken off me for practice. I was homeless. I went to my friends. I went to acquaintances, and eventually I was on the street. On my first night on the street, I remember sat there thinking to myself, where the hell did that just go wrong? And I stayed there for a year, Frank. And every day was a battle. Now, I'm a fighter, martial arts, boxing, bodybuilding. I was this guy that nobody would touch anyway. But I woke up one morning on the bench, 5 o'clock in the morning. The guy next to me had been stabbed to death for his sneakers. But what happened there? I was bare knuckle fighting for money with the gypsies. I was just I don't do losing very well. But here I am on the streets, lay in the gutter, still looking down on people. What the hell's that all about? Still didn't think I was an alcoholic, Frank. Here's the crazy part. I just thought I was going through some bad luck. But after 14 months on the streets, I dropped down to my hands and knees, and I started to cry from my belly. It was about 2 or 3, 4, 5, I don't know what time in the morning. It was pouring down. I'm on my hands and knees. My belly's aching of crying. I could see the tears mixing and hitting the cobblestones, and I looked up to the sky and I said, if there's a God up there, I can't do this on my own anymore. And 30 seconds later, a guy walked around the corner on the back ends of Manchester. Nobody should have been there. He had a little Bible in his hand. He came over and said, "You need help?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Come on, you can come back to my house." I shaved and dressed and showered for the first time in a year. He gave me some good home-cooked food, and that's where my journey started to where I am today.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that much detail. And obviously this is, I don't feel too many people can resonate with the experience of what you've gone through. But, whether they're struggling with porn, or they're struggling with alcohol, or even maybe struggling with like looking themselves in the mirror, and just the conversation of like taking responsibility for life. It's like we always try to justify behavior, justify lack of taking action for one way or the other. And I know it's obviously not going to do much for you in your life and your journey. You're obviously, you've turned your life around, and, like you said, you're the best in the world now with helping, alcoholics or addicts. But if you had a chance, Rob, to maybe go back and say something to yourself, or, that guy that's listening right now, and, he's justifying his behavior for whatever reason, what would the words, if you had a chance to speak to Rob back then, what would you have said to yourself? Like, knowing everything you know now, what would you have said to yourself in that moment?
people often ask me that question, and the answer's crazy. People might think, but when I look back on my life, it's all about being where I am today. So I would just say to my younger self, it's going to be okay, because there were suicide attempts. On 2 occasions, I actually killed myself, and my heart stopped, and they brought me back to life. But I'd say it'll be okay, because what happens now, Frank, is all the stuff that I went through. My youngest daughter still never speaks to me. She wants nothing to do with me. I've never seen her in 20 years. So what happens is the experience I have from the past then becomes my greatest asset moving forward, because many people will come up, especially if they come to their home office and they go, wow, look at you, Dr. Robb, the big $1 million house and the cars you drive. What do you know, Rob? I've just become homeless and my wife's left me. What do you know? And I go, sit down, buddy. Let me tell you about my experience. So the answer would be, it's going to be okay, only because I needed to go through that. Painful as it was, and the amount of people I hurt on my journey, because I hurt a lot of people, especially when I was bodybuilding. I was taking steroids, and I was a maniac when I was knocking people out just for fun, and it was horrible, absolutely horrible. So that's what I tell me. It's like, just that it's going to be okay. But I never thought that through my journey, though. I always knew I was going to die in the streets. 3% of people on the streets in Manchester, Frank, get off the streets. 97% die on the streets. And I was happy to do that. I was really happy to do that. But, somebody saved me. And then I was intrigued. What the hell is this alcoholism? Why can't I get a grip? Or other guys, bodybuilders, fighters, leaders of, all these guys that I knew, they were always hit across the head with alcoholism. And I was intrigued, and I swore when I got off the streets that I'm going to spend the rest of my life studying this disease like nobody else has, and getting a solution for the guys that are still struggling. And that's what happened.
What percentage of alcoholics do you see like are high performers? Peak achievers. I had a conversation with, I don't know if you're familiar with Stephen Pressfield. He's a best-selling author, wrote The War of Art. And we briefly touched on, and he talked about the creative brain, because he's a creative person. So talked about the creative brain, kind of somebody that leans more towards the creative side. They're more susceptible to addiction, because many times an addiction is kind of a replacement of creativity. Like, you can't sit in the struggle right now, so you seek out this exterior thing to mask the emotions, mask the feeling. And obviously with you, and I know for me as well, like, the things that made me a decent, good bodybuilder, things that made me a good business owner, also made me a good addict, if you know what I mean. Like, they're like a lot of the same. So what has been your experience with seeing alcoholics? Like, are they successful? And then what role does their life success, maybe play in them not telling the truth to themselves about the actual real depth of the problem?
So the alcoholic brain, before we go into chronic alcoholism, is amazing. We think different, we act different, and we're tunnel vision. If we want to be a millionaire, we'll become a millionaire. That's it. Nobody's going to stop us. Best brains in the world. So what happens when we go through a period of this drinking, if we survive it and we get sober? I'm a recovered alcoholic. I've recovered from that bullshit I was going through. Then the mind and everyone else is the best brain in the world. Everybody is successful. Now, whether you want to be the head road sweeper, you'll do it. Or whether you want to be a millionaire or a CEO, they do it. I only hire recovered alcoholics, because when we put our mind to it, and everything that goes with that, Frank, it's like I signed a $1 million contract for a lease in Dallas in a prestigious medical building. And people are coming up, my staff going, Rob, how do you sleep at night? You've got $1 million. And I go, what are they going to do to me? What, take the office away? Take Christmas off me? What are they going to do to me that have not already been done? And that mindset of, I often say to people, if you're at home struggling, if you're at home thinking you're a piece of crap and you're never going to amount to anything, I want to apologize to you. Somebody's put that there. Alcoholics and addicts are born with $1 million minds. Stop hanging around 10-cent minds, guys. Come on. There's a war to be won here. There's a life to lead. I've done it. It's okay for Europe. No. Don't even go there with that crap. It's not okay for me. I had to struggle with what I struggled through. I had to go through what I had to go through. It's been a bloody battle. till a certain about 20 years ago when I recovered from this bullshit. It was a battle. So don't say it's okay for you. What I'm saying is if I could do it, you can do it. And that's my message to everybody in that areas. I wish I could sit here, guys, and go, hey, I'm kind of special. No, there's nothing special about me. If you do A, B, and C, D will follow. And it's just, I mean, people freak out. They go, oh, I don't know if I can. Oh, I was breaking records since the age of 9. I remember going to a show for the juniors. I was 19 years old. I blasted the competition away. Hey, you better go in the misters then. I blasted the competition away. That's always been my mindset. What's next to achieve? And this is what I teach people. It's stop putting brakes on your imagination, guys. It's like quantum physics. Let's take quantum physics, for instance. It says I could be 25 places on a basketball court at the same time because nothing's really solid. Quantum physics, tried and tested. Okay, so where do I want to be? I want to be over near the goal. I get the ball, I slam it in the net, and bang, I'm the hero of the game. So people go, Rob, I know you can visualize it and stuff. I know you actually can. How are you going to get there? Listen up. I'm going to walk over and I'm going to take that position. I'm not going to beg for it. I'm not going to ask for it. It's my position. It's mine already. What you can visualize in your head, 100% you can hold in your hand. Just get belief. You see, we're all so empowered, but we don't know we are.
Yeah, and I think I just want to add to that. Before you can hold it in your hand, you have to visualize it in your mind. Like you cannot experience anything in reality without it going through your brain and experience it in your mind first. I love what you said there when you were like, what's the worst that's going to happen to me at this point? I've lived on the streets. I've been at the point of trying to take my own life, and it's like I get these guys all the time. It's like, why haven't you spoken to anybody? You've been struggling with this for 5 years. I'm talking about guys, with porn addiction. Oh, I'm worried about what people are going to think. I'm worried about what somebody's going to say about me. Listen to your own internal dialogue. The conversations you're having inside of your own head are exponentially worse than anything that anybody's ever going to have to say about you. So the question, Rob, is, you had to get to rock bottom. So many people have to go through that moment. How do we get the guy to wake up? Like if his life hasn't hit rock bottom, but he is an alcoholic and he's having success because the brain is, like you said, like we've been given $1 million minds. How do we get that guy to wake up before it gets to the point where he's looking at his daughter being taken away from him? Daddy, please get help. Daddy, please stop. What is something like, how do we get the guy to like smack him in the head and wake him up today?
It's more people like me and you that are out there that's telling the truth and going, hey guys, it's going to be okay. Let me tell you, let me walk you through this. Doesn't matter what problems you're going through. Stop being selfish. Get over it. Find out you're important. Find out you're empowered. Get somebody like me in your face every day. Repetition strengthens and confirms. How do you think somebody gets 20-inch arms? You think they sit around feeling sorry for themselves? No. They go out repetition every day. They think. I had the pleasure, absolute pleasure of hanging around in the early days with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'm talking before his fame, about 78, 79, when this underground movie just come out called Pumping Iron. And he came over to England, to Manchester, to a tour. Now, I belong to NABA, National Amateur Bodybuilder Association, and they had brought him over. So me and a friend, got to pick him up from the airport and take him to the hotel. Now, listen, guys, this is really important. This crazy guy that was just mind-blowing, his physique was just mind-blowing, was sat in a hotel, and I wanted to pick his brains. And I'm like, hey, Arnold, can you, what are you going to do with your life? I mean, you can't really speak English, and he's bodybuilding that. And he sat me down, and this is what he said to me. And I've never forgot this, Frank. He said, I'm going to do 3 things in the world. I was like, okay. What? Be a doorman or something, or a bodyguard? And he said, no. So let me tell you, I will become the highest paid actor in the world in movies. Well, we tried not to laugh because the guy couldn't speak English. I said, what else, Frank? He said, I want to become a governor of a state. I just want to be a governor. I was like, what state? And he said, something like California, Sunshine State. And we laughed and stuff. And, it's Florida, Sunshine State. But we didn't say anything to him. And then we said, what else? What's the third one? And this is the one that blew me away. He said, I'm going to marry into the Kennedy family. And we're all looking around going, there's just no way, Arnold. You just bang, bang, bang. Mindset. All about mindset. You see him visualize that stuff when he was back home in Graz. He visualized that stuff when his father died and he didn't go to the funeral because he had a competition or was training for it. He visualized that moment, and hell yeah, it come true. Why would it not come true? Why would it not come true? So these guys and me, when we're struggling going through this stuff, just dialogue again. Get over somebody like me and just say, give me a 10-minute pep talk that will change my life. Because that's what it's about. Because what you hear and what you see is important to us. Now, I say all the time to guys, you are so empowered and you will never know. We'll never know. Like me and my friend were going through some pictures the other day, and we found an old picture of me and him when we were competing. And we're like, oh my God. He said, Rob, have you seen this? I'm like, oh my God, look how well we looked. Look how our waist was so small. Oh my God. Jimmy, those were the days, weren't they? And he said, yeah, Rob, those were the days. And I stopped there for a second. I had two thought patterns. First of all, we didn't know then that those were the days. We didn't know. And what if today's one of those days? So I live to life the fullest today. And everybody out there who's struggling can do the same. And I'll tell you why. Everyone keeps saying, Rob, yeah, again, it's okay for you. I put my money where my mouth is. I'm the only company in the world that will offer a money-back guarantee of you getting an amazing life and stopping drinking and taking drugs. The only person in the world. So listen, while we're chatting away here and you're thinking, yeah, but, if you want a 10-minute chat, power chat, that will change your life, not selling you anything here, we'd have to sell this crap. Listen, call me, 214-600-0210, and go, hey, Dr. Rob, I need a 10-minute power talk to change my life, free of charge. Just do it. Just do it. Because I'm in the trenches, guys. I'm still of the mindset of having nothing, of living on the streets, of getting up as if this was my last day today. And again, nothing special about me. Come and join us. If I can change your life, I will.
I love that, and by you doing that, like you're forcing me to level up what I'm doing here. I'll talk to anybody for 15 minutes for free, but I'm not giving up my phone number. So maybe I need to reevaluate like how much I actually care about people, brother. That's amazing. We'll get that number. If you guys didn't catch it, obviously as you were sharing it, it'll obviously be notated down there in the show notes. I love the Arnold story, and I want to share a quick conversation I was having yesterday, because a lot has kind of transpired in my own personal life, and I think it resonates with what that Arnold story, because he did all three of those. He married Kennedy, and obviously became the highest paid actor at $25 million a year back in like the 90s. It was insane. And then we know the governor piece. When I was at probably one of the darkest points in my life and really struggling with my porn addiction, it would have been around 2015. I coming off the back end of a horrible breakup that just tore me apart. I was deep into drugs. I was doing a lot of party drugs, Molly, ecstasy type of things. I remember having a conversation though with somebody that was a very close friend of mine, somebody I really looked up to. He was huge success. He was a WWE superstar, like one of the biggest names in that industry. And we're at a strip club one night, and we'd been doing some drugs. And I had a business that was doing well. We were doing about $500,000 a year. But he knew I wasn't happy, and he goes, Frank, what do you really want to do? Like I guess I can tell you're not happy in this business. And I didn't have big dreams as a kid. I didn't want to be like the doctor, lawyer. Like I just always knew I wanted to kind of be an entrepreneur or business owner. I wanted to be the one in charge. And over the course of this conversation, like we got to the point where it's like, if I could really do anything, Kevin, and this is what I told him, I was like, I would love to work behind the scenes helping other people build their businesses. I want to have one big success for me, but then I want to be able to help and coach other individuals and help lay the ground, lay the foundation. My life has gone down a crazy, crazy journey. I hit rock bottom in that business, lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I had to get back. I was driving Uber and delivering groceries just to kind of make things manage. Well, this last year has been amazing, with the launch of the podcast 2 years ago, and then developing Rebuild Recovery, which is our addiction recovery business. We've quickly scaled this to, 6 figures, be multi-6 figures by the end of the year. And because of that, I just this past month got the opportunity of a lifetime. What I dreamt about back in 2015. I now work inside of a business coaching mastermind, helping other startup entrepreneurs build and launch their businesses. But all that had been planted. It's like I had envisioned it and written it down in my journal and planned. And like it didn't happen like overnight, but by me taking daily action, by me taking responsibility for my life and cleaning everything up, because that was the beginning of me getting over my own addiction. So what Rob is saying is so incredibly powerful. Like you have to envision your life before it's going to become reality, which is why we do a major part of that inside our recovery. I want to get back to you though, because major success on the streets, and then you find this guy, you're praying, and then somebody kind of shows up. Obviously, we know, like that's, like God has had hands on you since then. So I'm curious, because your previous work wasn't in, the neuroscience field, like you weren't studying the brain. So what was it once you got kind of, once this guy saved you and you now began working on your own self? What was it about the brain that really intrigued you, and how did you get into the work that you're doing today?
Well, it's intrigued me because I couldn't stop. And loads of people that I was with who suffered from that, with 12-step meetings I went to, couldn't stop. And I'm like, how come we can achieve everything else in the world, but we can't stop drinking alcohol? What's that about? What's that self-sabotaging act about? And that's what really got me into the brain, looking at what really happens in the brain, like the hypothalamus, which is at the base, at the back of the brain. The hypothalamus tells a normal human being to drink water and eat food. It's a fight or flight part of the brain. It's never wrong. That's why we never have to teach babies how to eat. So when it's hungry, it'll put his fist down its mouth and stuff like that, or cry. We don't have to teach people that. Do you know what the hypothalamus tells the alcoholic during the benders is drink alcohol. And that's why alcoholics can go days, even weeks without water or food. So when you're up against your brain, self-sabotaging your brain, then that's a battle I want to get involved with. Is that how can we get around that? How can we work that into our getting well for good? There's a great book out there with the 12-step meeting I go to. It talks about permanent recovery, and that's what I was sold on: permanent recovery. How do we get permanent recovery? And like I say, the alcohol's a symptom. I remember stood outside a shop once, Frank, one of the drinking days, and I had a vest on. I had a pair of shorts and a pair of flip flops. It's 5:30 in the morning, it's snowing, and I'm sweating profusely. I'm waiting for this guy to open at 6. Now he knows me. He can't serve alcohol till like 10 or something, but he knows me. He opens the door at 10 to 6. Come in, Rob. And I walk in this not normal day. I'm sweating, banging headache. If I don't drink, I'm going into BTs and I'll probably die. I put my £10 on the counter. He puts the bottle of vodka on the counter. I put my hand on the handle and I go, my headache stopped, my shaking stopped, my mood changed. I was calm and collected. And I looked at him and I looked at my hand on the bottle, not even opened the bottle. And I thought, holy shit, it's not the alcohol, it's my brain. And that's what set everything off. And then we did loads of tests on the way. Like, we found out that, an alcoholic or addict sat at home with the neural pathway going self-sabotage, drink alcohol, and the dealer or the liquor store, which was the most enticing and really nice journey. It was the journey there. It was the journey there. Because when we take the alcoholic drugs, we're kind of gone into that dull mindset. We can't think and we're wasted. It was the journey from the house to the liquor store or the dealer that was the most intoxicating. So then we delved into that work and we find out that I can tell when people are about to relapse. Now, if the disease is in the subconscious brain, how can I do that? It's all about behavior. So then I went back to school. I got a second PhD on behavioral science. Now I know what people do. Now I know the signs, the actions. If you've been drinking, all the 3,000 signs and indications here that I can tell when someone's not in a great place and probably going to relapse. So that's probably the most, for me, intoxicating journey, no pun intended, of the brain. Is like, it's not like the normal brain, and nobody's studying this. And the reason why nobody's studying this is there's no money in recovery. If you can't pay a 30 grand fee to go in a treatment center, or the pharmaceutical company can't give you a pill, then nobody wants to know. And that's where we were stuck, banging my head for a long time against the wall, Frank. Nobody believed me, but people getting well. When you have a 97% success rate over 25, 30 years with almost 7,000 patients, people start to listen. And we've dealt with the biggest movie stars, the biggest footballers, and the local road sweeper. It doesn't make any difference. But I'll tell you what makes a difference is every single one of them has changed and got their life back. Almost 100% guaranteed success rate, because we're serious about what we do. This isn't about the money. I could retire tomorrow. I drive a Mercedes McLaren. I wear Rolex watches. I have a big house. Not to brag, but I could could be tired tomorrow to Florida or something. I'm actually in Texas right now. Why don't I do it? It's not about the money. This is about getting people well. We do 20% of our work pro bono. We give almost $200,000 away last year to people who can't afford to get the kids back, people who can't afford the first 6 months rent, people who can't afford the car taking kids to school. That's what we do behind the scenes. Charity organization. I spent the last week speaking at a PTSD meeting where there were fellow veterans and EMT workers. I did like 2 hours there plus the prep. Nobody sees this behind the scenes that I do. I'm always giving back. They didn't see the 100 hamburgers that we bought from McDonald's and took them under the bridge and give them away free to these guys that have been starving under the bridge. They don't see that. This I have to be in the trenches, Frank, all the time. I'm a trenches kind of guy, but I'm a winner today, and that's very contagious when you speak to somebody like me. Very contagious. Because I tell you, you see, when people go to therapy, they'd ask you a question. They go, "Oh, so how are you feeling today?" We don't do that. We tell you how you're feeling today until you can get the befogged brain back. Because we're human beings. We're capable of doing anything. And people used to say to me, "Oh, Rob, well, I can't become president." I beg to differ today. Don't come that crap with me. You can be anybody you want. Just get this going first. Believe it. Walk it. Do you know what we do, Frank, when they come to us and they're broken down, but they have been somebody, or if they want to start a business, we take them to the Porsche dealerships and we drive the Porsche 911s. And then we can take them to the $1 million houses and we walk around them viewing. And what happens to the brain, it preempts that success. So when success comes, because it will, when you go back to the Porsche dealership, the brain doesn't freak out and go, "Oh my God, this is $150,000. What the brain does, it goes, "Oh yeah, I remember this. This is very comfortable." Isn't that cool?
Yeah, touch your dreams. That's we had with Mike Wester, a 20-year entrepreneur journey. Started, built his first website in college, and 20 years later, he's got a multi-figure business. Shared the same exact thing. He's like, yeah, take the vacation, just go sit in the hotel lobby and just experience and be around success, be around the energy. Like we were talking, chasing dreams, but obviously it's the same product, same result here. But I love you. I'm so like today has been for me probably more than anything. You're such an inspiration, Rob. I see so much of me and you. Obviously, I'm really in kind of the second year of my business, but all the things you said, all the give back to charity, all the doing this for the impact, not for the income, brother, that's me. So I knew that this was going to be fire, but it's far exceeded my expectations. I want to get your opinion because you talked about permanent recovery and you talked about fixing the brain and it's not a solution and I know you've been in the 12 steps and you talked about it here a couple times. I don't want to get anybody in trouble here, so I hope this question doesn't do that for you. You can't answer it with an opinion. What's your take on the 12-step approach? Because I've had a few addiction experts on it. I've shared my opinions. I believe it keeps people kind of shackled to the recovery process. You never fully get on the other side of things. So I'm just curious, like, what is your take and opinion on a 12-step approach to recovery?
Well, if you look at the original 12 steps when they came out, the success around Akron when it was first developed was 99 to 100%. So you look at the same 12-step group today, it's 3%. So we've got to look at what's happening. So first of all, they have an amazing book there, called the Big Book, and it gives clear-cut direction how you can recover. But what happens is we talk about war stories. We talk about, we go there to hit on girls. We go there to hit on men. If we're gay, where else can you go with 30 other men in the same room? Never realize why they had a men's meeting. I still don't get that, we're alcoholics or we're not. So it's if you walk into the right meeting, get the right sponsor, taking you through the book properly, there's 100% chance of you recovering from alcoholism and getting your life back. So I've got to tell you, Frank, in all the years I've been training, school, colleges, which is about 20 odd years of going back to school, studying alcoholism, studying addicted brain, study, science, brain spotting, which is the latest thing that we do. I have to say that the first 164 of that big book is the best piece of literature I have ever read pertaining to the alcoholic who wants permanent recovery. But you have to read the book properly. And there's a lot of people in AA. From my travels around the world, I got to tell you this. Any meeting, anywhere that I've been through, 90% of people in there are heavy drinkers or going there for the wrong reason. So you have to be careful where you go. I think it's successful. I think it's amazing combined with therapy. Yeah, it's very successful. Repetition, strengthens, and confirms. What I do every day when I get up is I do a prayer, and then I go to the mirror and say, I love you 10 times. No other affirmation, just I love you. I'm storing that subconscious brain. So when I have to make a decision, and then I write down 5 things I'm going to do that day. So here's what happens, right? If I do them 5 things, breakfast, go for a run, do work, lunch, spend an hour with the wife. If I do all them 5 things, I've taken a step forward. But if I don't, I've taken a step back. So look at this, guys. This is Robb Kelly. Gets up in the morning. This is the guy that's going to steal your girlfriend, steal your money, steal your car, fight you, and possibly kill you. This is why I wake up every morning. This is my prayers. This is my mirror work. This is my helping people, giving back and seeing patients. And what happens is I walk out the door like this. This guy's an amazing guy, Frank. This guy's done all the things we just mentioned. But the next morning, guess who wakes him up? It's this guy. So if I don't do all these things on a daily basis, this guy's going to be let loose. This guy's going to kill somebody.
And because we understand how the brain works and where dopamine comes from, is by making that plan every morning and then actually going and doing those things. Every time you check something off of your list, you're rewiring those neural pathways and you're getting a hit of dopamine because it's moving you closer towards your goals. Bro, this is amazing. I want to be respectful. I know you got a call here coming up. We got a meeting in the next few minutes, so I want to bring this home. We're probably gonna have to have you back on. I feel like I could talk to you forever. So I'll be in touch with your assistant over there. We're actually going to be speaking again next week for your show. So we'll get everything plugged down there. But got a last question that we ask at the end of every show. But before we do that, Dr. Robb, if people are interested, obviously they know how to get a hold of you, where to text you. But if they want to get more about, the Robb Recovery Group or where you're kind of hanging out and doing things online socially, where's the best place for people to connect you with?
So my website is spelled my name. It's just ROBB, 2 B's in Rob, Kelly, KLY.com. Visit there. Amazon and Walmart is selling my book. Now listen, every proceed that goes to that book is given to charity, not profits, proceeds. The book is, it's called Daddy, Daddy, Please Stop Drinking, of course, because 4 years ago, my daughter got in touch with my eldest one, and we sat back to college, and we loved each other, and 4 or 5 months ago, she opened my Manchester office, United Kingdom, as one of my therapists. So things do come round. So yeah, search Dr. Robb Kelly on any search engine. You'll find me. And text me, call us, join us, do whatever you need to do, guys, to get you to that next level and stop taking no for an answer. There are yeses out there coming. So every no I come up against, it's like the Beatles. It's one no down to a permanent yes. Every single time. You cannot fail with this mindset, guys. Let me give you my mindset. Try it for a day.
I love it. Absolutely love it. So just to connect the dots for everybody, that same young girl that stood at the bottom of those steps and brought us to tears. I know there was thousands of people crying during that part of the story. That same young girl, now woman, is she opened up a Manchester office and rekindled that relationship. And now she's a part of your team of helping other people, of transforming the world, of doing this amazing work. Guys, if that doesn't give you the goosebumps and chills and show you the power of a transformation, show you the power of proper decisions and trusting the process. Thank you so much for today, Robb. Our last question is one we end every single show with. Obviously, the title of this podcast is The Superhuman Life. And we got here, I touched on it a little bit, kind of, it's a result of my own story, my own transformation. And how I live and kind of how I see the world now is much different than I did for the first 35 years of my life. So when I talk about living a superhuman life, for me, it's the belief system and how I kind of view the world and how I'm supposed to show up every day. So it's an understanding or belief that we were put on this earth for a purpose, but then secondly, that we're required to take responsibility for that and do our part. So me living a superhuman life is when you bring those two together, that's living a superhuman life. So I'd love to get the guest take here. So Dr. Robb Kelly, as we close out today, how would you define living a superhuman life?
You've got to live your best life every single day. Care for others, love others, always be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. It's just a world here we're getting on with. If anyone says something that doesn't nice, they're really talking about themselves. And just live that life, guys, and believe that God, or if you believe in the universe, whatever, has something better for you. And listen, the last thing I want to say is really cool. It's like we ask for so little, he wants to give us so much. If you're doing the right thing, if you're acting accordingly, dressing accordingly, and speaking accordingly, ask your God for shit. Ask him. I'm telling you, it's the freaking coolest thing. Like, ask for, I get it. Ask for this, I get it. But you've got to be doing your own work. You've got to clear up the trauma, and you've got to be intensively, just work intensively working with others. Always be available. Put yourself out there. It's worth it. I promise you.
Amazing. I love you, Rob. Thank you so much. You guys heard it. Ask and knocking you shall enter, asking you shall receive. And I butchered that a little bit, but it's right there in the word. Guys, thank you so much. If today spoke to you, if it helped you, if there's somebody in your life that needs to hear this, help us continue to grow this podcast in one of two ways. First off, if you haven't done so yet, we love those 5-star ratings and written reviews, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you're listening. But most importantly, if there's somebody that you know is struggling and needs to hear this, maybe there's somebody in your family, maybe there's somebody in your life that maybe has that alcoholic brain, but they haven't been woken up to it yet. Do us a favor sharing this conversation with them. But for Dr. Robb Kelly, Frank Rich, we love you guys. God bless, and we'll see you next week.